Lords of the Fallen is coming out soon, and as a fan of Souls-likes, it's one of my most anticipated games of 2023. I've put together a class overview and rankings video in order to express my thoughts on each class, as well as give my personal rankings on which I'm looking forward to playing the most. So let's jump right in. Blackfeather Ranger, a ranged focus class that heavily utilizes elemental or poison-infused arrows. It's best suited using agility-based weapons since agility increases your bow damage. The Blackfeather Ranger thrives by landing headshots and dealing out critical hits on bosses by targeting their weak points with a bow. This seems like a fun class to try if you like keeping your distance in combat or have traditionally favored dexterity builds in Souls games. Condemned. It's fairly obvious what this class is meant to be if you're a fan of Souls-likes. With the lowest starting stats and largely ineffective weapons and armor, this is pretty much your deprived or wretch class. It's meant for those who really want a blank slate for leveling or prefer an extra challenge in their playthrough. Dark Crusader. I have to preface this one by mentioning it's only playable on your first playthrough if you purchase the deluxe edition of the game. However, it has been noted that you can unlock this class later in the game for subsequent playthroughs. With that said, this is the poster boy of the game and seems like a pretty powerful starting class. Clad in heavy armor and wielding a greatsword makes the Dark Crusader a solid choice for fans of strength builds. It also starts with some radiant spells at the start, which could give a little more variety when it comes to dealing damage. Exiled Stalker. This is your speedy dual dagger wielding class that looks to focus on getting in quick combos on enemies while dashing out of the range of follow-ups or counterattacks. Comes equipped with poison salts for imbuing those daggers with poison, which sounds pretty good if you like status effect builds. Primarily focuses on agility and being aggressive in short bursts, so definitely more of a squishy yet highly mobile DPS build in my opinion. Hallowed Knight. Donning heavy armor and the ever-classic sword and board combo, this is going to be your balanced knight class. This one should be a solid choice for beginners and veterans alike. Good survivability and damage will help with early game content while you plan and develop your build. Also equipped with grenades for some sweet AoE damage. This class seems like a solid choice if you're not really sure what type of build you want to develop, but it should also let you dabble in a few different areas before fully committing. Mornstead Infantry. This is a ranged focus class that prioritizes defense. Should be good at keeping enemies at a distance and poking them to pieces from behind your shield, as well as taking down targets from afar with your javelins. This class could end up being a solid choice for build flexibility, and despite lower damage, should have great survivability. Orion Preacher. Starting with a big hammer and a healing spell makes this a solid choice for anyone who likes paladin builds. Breaking enemies' posture will be the key to survival in early game, as well as focusing on radiance to boost the effectiveness of your spells. Developing this class into either a pure spellcaster or a melee and buff focused build should be tons of fun for those who like the Holy Warrior class fantasy. Partisan. This could rival the Hallowed Knight and Mornstead Infantry as one of the more balanced classes in the game. The combo of flail and crossbow has you covered for both ranged and close quarters combat, and they start with a stamina regen consumable. Agility and endurance are going to be your primary stats here. This is your skirmisher style class that is a little bit more mobile than a knight, but still deals good damage. Pirate Cultist. A range-focused pyromancer equipped with a polearm. Slinging fireballs to keep enemies at bay and punishing those who get close with sweeping strikes from your staff makes for a potentially hard-hitting class. Investing heavily in Infernal to boost pyromancies, as well as endurance to keep casting while under pressure, seems to be the way to go for leveling. It's been mentioned that early game enemies are somewhat resistant to infernal damage, but don't let that keep you from trying out this class if you like pyromancy. Udaranger Warwolf. An offensive powerhouse class that invokes the barbarian archetype. Setting your weapon ablaze with fire salts and posture breaking enemies into the ground should make for a super satisfying experience. Strength is going to be your primary stat here, but also has the potential to utilize buffing war cries with investment into either Radiance or Infernal. Now that we have the class overviews wrapped up, let's look at my personal rankings. This video is being created before launch and I haven't had an opportunity to play the game yet, so I'll rank these based solely on my own playstyle preferences as well as overall vibes. So we're going to call these the Vibes rankings. Number 10, Condemned. I have no interest in rolling with what's likely the most challenging class to begin a playthrough with, however I can appreciate the blank slate nature of this class for build planning. Number 9, Mornstead Infantry. I think this class has the potential to be really solid, but I'm personally just not a big fan of spears. Number 8, Exiled Stalker. The poison salts seem cool, but daggers and the hit and run style this class demands are just not my jam in these types of games. 7, Blackfeather Ranger. I'm very intrigued by the bow combat in Lords of the Fallen. If it's viable, it could make this class a solid choice with the elemental arrows, and I do like the fashion here, gives me Bloodborne vibes. Number 6, Partisan. I think the flail and crossbow combo seems like it could be pretty sweet, but it's just not quite enough to make it into my top 5. Number 5, Pirate Cultist. Pyromancers can be a ton of fun, but I do prefer a more melee focused build with spells for support. Number 4, Hallowed Knight. I really dig the armor as well as the sword and board playstyle. This one is tempting to choose for a first playthrough to really get a feel for the combat. Number 3, Orion Preacher. I'm a fan of the Paladin archetype, so starting with a big hammer and a healing spell is a big win for me. The only downside here is the starting armor. Number 2, Dark Crusader. Wielding a great sword and having some radiant abilities sounds fantastic to me. This honestly may end up being the class I roll with come launch day. Number 1, Udaranger Warwolf. I absolutely love the armor set this class starts with, and as a fan of strength builds, this class really speaks to me. Using fire salts to set my weapon on fire, as well as getting access to Warcry buffs with a little stat investment, pushes this class to the top of my list for now. So that wraps up my pre-launch class overview and rankings. I do plan on making an updated video post-launch, that way the information here can be updated to reflect how each class actually plays and feels, and I'm sure my rankings will also change once I'm able to actually test out the classes. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you'd like to see more Lords of the Fallen content on this channel. Also, be sure to leave a comment if you'd like to share what classes you're looking forward to trying out the most upon release.